Alright, boys and girls, I got an interesting video topic request from a friend of mine, and in not so many words, she wants to know where is the line between disciplining your children and child abuse? And let's be real, a lot of children who grew up in the late 90s and moving forward is when spanking your children as a form of discipline became more and more frowned upon. And a lot of us grew up with old school parents. A lot of our parents and grandparents grew up in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the early 70s, where spanking a child was prominent, especially if they got in line. And any adult authority figure could do it, whether they were a teacher, a preacher, because the children were raised by the community. And spanking is pretty much prominent in black communities, Latino communities, and even southern white people. Now, I'm 32 years old, and me personally, I do believe in spanking your child as a form of discipline. However, I think it should only be used as a last resort when nothing else works. And also, a lot of people in recent years have said that spanking your child as a go-to form of punishment is a sign of a lack of patience as a parent. And in 2022, there are a lot more ways to discipline your child. But then again, I'll be honest, if something was taken away from me, like a video game or the internet or something like that, I'd find a way to get around that. And these days, there's punishments that aren't really punishment. Like, you ground a kid for a week, they got an iPhone, they got a tablet, they got video games. It's not really a punishment. Me, I got my TV taken away. Like, spanking was not the only way that you can get at your child. And everybody remembers all the classic instruments of discipline. Basically, what we were used to be spanked with. Whether it was a classic belt, a leather strap, a rolled up newspaper, a chancla, for all my Hispanic Latinos, a little sandal. You were even allowed to be hit with a wooden paddle with holes in it. Because, you can hear the crack of the sound. Because my mom, she says she still has horror stories about that from when she was growing up in school. Oh, yeah, and this one is for my old school down south folks. Y'all remember the switch. Basically, where your mother, your father, grandparent, they would make you go to the backyard, go get a small twig from a bush or a tree. That's the sound it would make when it would crack through the air. And they will give you 10 lashes with that small switch. And hell, sometimes it will hurt even more than the belt. This is where some people might have a little bit confused, because as children, our parents are our first role models. Our parents are the first people that we look up to as authority figures. But we're also taught love and respect by our parents. But here's the difference. Is fear and respect the same thing? That's up for debate. What do you guys think? To pick up where I left off at spanking as a form of discipline, now let's get into the really juicy question. What are both the positive and the negative effects of using spanking as a form of discipline? Because a lot of us who grew up before the 2000s were all spanked as children. And the main argument that a lot of people who were spanked use is, well, I was spanked as a child and I turned out fine. Did you really? Ask yourself, did you? Because you could have some sort of repressed memories where anytime somebody raises their hand, you cringe or you kind of, duck your head, or anytime you hear a belt, then it brings back those horrible memories of when you were about to be spanked. And y'all let me know if this is a coincidence or not. Because did you notice how in the 70s on back, there were no school shootings? And the reason why is because spanking was allowed as a form of discipline to the point where the principal or the teacher could do it. Now, from the 2000s on, there have been more school shootings than ever. I wonder why that is. And also, what situations call for your child to be spanked? I'm going to show y'all a clip from the 2000s TV series, The Boondocks.
He sure looks like a handful.
When he gets like this, I just don't know how to make him stop.
Have you ever tried beating his ass?
With the belt?
You must have lost your goddamn mind.
Now, a situation like that, in my opinion, that requires spanking or physical discipline, because not only is he being a danger to everybody around him, but he's being a danger to himself. He's destroying property. He's not listening to his mother. And my mother told me this, because I know a lot of people grew up saying, you're with your mom. And I know that at some point in public, right before we go out, our mothers and grandmothers have all told us this. They grabbed us by our hand, whispered in our ear, and said, you ain't going to embarrass me in public. Because guess what? A parent is a reflection of their child. And if their child is acting out in public, that means they failed as a parent. But then again, I know some people who were not spanked at all, and they turned out just as fine as people who were spanked. And I also know people who were spanked every single day, and they turned out to be career criminals. And some of them even went to an early grave. So it really is a mixed bag. But in conclusion, I do believe that parents should spank their children, but only as a last resort. And don't overdo it, because it could do more harm than good in the long run. But what do you guys think?